Everything changed the moment I saw the video. I was quietly setting the table for our usual Sunday family dinner when my daughter-in-law, Melissa, stood in the doorway filming me with her phone. At first, I assumed she was recording the beautiful meal, but then I heard her laugh and say, "Our live and made." At least she is good for something. Minutes later, she posted the video online with that exact caption. The worst part was not her joke. It was seeing my own son, Ethan, react with nothing more than a laughing emoji. In that moment, I realized I was no longer treated like a mother. I had become unpaid help living in my own house. A year earlier, Ethan and Melissa had asked to move into my home so they could save money for a house. I happily agreed because I believed families should help one another. Before long, I was cooking every meal, cleaning the house, washing their clothes, buying the groceries, and paying most of the bills. They never asked if I was tired or thanked me for everything I did. They simply expected it. After watching that video, I quietly packed a small bag, left the house without saying a word, and checked into a cozy bed and breakfast where I finally had time to think. The next morning, Melissa sent me an angry message saying her grocery card had been declined. She had no idea that I had already canceled the extra debit card I had given her for household shopping. When I returned home later that day, both of them demanded an explanation. I calmly told them that if they wanted to be treated like independent adults, they could start paying for their own groceries. I asked for the card back, and Melissa tossed it on the table while insisting the video had only been a joke. I simply reminded her that jokes have consequences. From that day forward, I stopped doing everything for them. I cooked only my own meals, washed only my own dishes, and left their laundry untouched. Ethan complained because he needed a clean shirt for work, but I reminded him that the washing machine still worked perfectly. Melissa insisted she was too busy because of her gym schedule, but I refused to take responsibility for tasks they could easily do themselves. For the first time in months, I stopped acting like their caretaker and started acting like the owner of my own home. As the days passed, I noticed how much of my house they had slowly taken over. Their shoes blocked the hallway, their magazines covered my coffee table, and their belongings filled every room downstairs. I gathered everything into baskets and placed it outside their bedroom upstairs. Then I moved my favorite reading chair back into the living room by the window, reclaiming the space I had quietly surrendered. Melissa hated every change, but I calmly reminded her that it was my house, not hers. Soon Ethan approached me with another request. They were planning a beach vacation and expected me to contribute money as I always had. This time I refused. Instead, I hired a handyman to install locks on my bedroom and home office after realizing Melissa had been helping herself to my personal belongings whenever she pleased. She questioned why I suddenly wanted privacy, but I answered honestly. I was protecting my peace. The next project was the garage. For nearly a year, my car had been left outside while their moving boxes, old furniture, and unused equipment occupied every inch of the space. I spent an entire afternoon moving everything into the covered backyard storage area before finally parking my own car inside my garage again. Ethan was furious when he came home, but I explained that if they wanted to keep their belongings, they would have to organize them themselves. I was no longer sacrificing my comfort for their convenience. Their frustration only grew. One morning, they emptied several of my groceries from the refrigerator and left a note saying they wanted separate food from now on. Rather than arguing, I bought a small refrigerator for my office and stocked it with my own groceries. When they opened the kitchen refrigerator and found almost nothing inside, they realized I had accepted their idea. From then on, they would buy and prepare their own meals without relying on me. The biggest surprise came one Friday evening when Melissa invited her parents to stay for the weekend without asking me. She confidently led them toward the guest room only to discover the door locked. I had already converted the room into my personal craft room. I politely welcomed her parents, but explained that any guests they invited would need to stay in their upstairs living area. It was uncomfortable for everyone, yet it finally forced them to understand that they could not make decisions about a house they did not own. After that weekend, I handed Ethan an envelope containing a rental agreement. I explained that if they wished to continue living upstairs, they would begin paying fair rent along with their share of utilities starting the following month. If they refused, they had 3 months to find another place to live. It was not revenge or punishment. It was simply a clear boundary that should have existed from the beginning. Several days later, Ethan quietly returned the signed agreement. He apologized for the video and admitted they had taken me for granted. Their behavior slowly changed. They bought their own groceries, washed their own clothes, respected my privacy, and treated me with basic courtesy. 4 months later, they moved into their own apartment, finally ready to build a life without depending on me.
이